Good night, Belizeans. Good night, Belizeans. This is the Belize Affair show number 267. 267. We thank you for tuning into our program tonight, and we hope that whatever we bring to the program will be of some public benefit to you, the Belizeans at home and abroad, and others. Tonight, I'm going to be your chairman, being Friday. My name is Leonard Brackett, and I have with me currently our next chairman for the Wednesday night program and senior panelist, Mr. Roody Wade. Uh, as we normally do, uh, when we start our program, we do a little short prayer and then we do a reading and then we get into the business of the program. So I'll just bow my head temporarily for a little while, say a short prayer, and then I will turn over to Mr. Wade. Divine loving Father, thou who art the creator of heaven and earth and all that in them are, into thy hands we commend ourselves, asking that thou would hear our supplications, that thou would bless us and our family members, our friends and loved ones, wherever they are. Thou knowest them all by name and number. We pray that thou mayest bless our country of these, its people and leadership. We pray that thou mayest bless this country of the United States, its people and leadership, and that thou would bless the rest of humanity, especially those people who are in war zones and who are suffering from earthquake and tornadoes and fire storms and all other manners of pestilence and as well as man-made catastrophes on the face of this earth. Please continue to be merciful unto us all. We pray for us these mercies in Jesus' name. Amen. Are you, Mr. Wade?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
It's always a pleasure to sit in your company. Um,
Pleasure in mine too, Mr. Wade.
Hopeful that again, tonight's show will be some educational benefit to the public. As always, we try to educate the public of, you know, what's going on in our country. And as for you, Mr. Chairman, you're educating for the public on the Constitution. Know your rights. Um, know what is going on constitutionally, right? So
Yes, sir.
I just hope that it, beneficiary to the listening public. Again, welcome to our Belizean Affairs show number 267 on a blessed Friday, 2025. Leonard, I will do a reading from Proverbs 11, chapter 11, 1 to 10. It reads, a false balance is an abomination to the
To the
Lord,
Lord. Amen.
but a just weight
Is his
is
delight.
his delight.
Amen.
When pride comes, then comes disgrace. But with the humble is wisdom. The integrity of the upright guides them,
Amen.
but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them. Riches do not profit in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. The righteousness of the blameless keeps his ways straight, but the wicked falls by his own wickedness.
Mm-hmm.
The righteousness of the upright delivers them, but the treacherous are taken captive by their lust. When the wicked dies, his rope will perish, and the expectation of wealth perish too. The righteous is delivered from trouble, and the wicked walks into it instead. With his mouth, the godless man would destroy his neighbor, but by knowledge, the righteous are delivered. Whom it goes well with, the righteous, the city rejoice. And when the wicked perish, there are shouts and gladness. By the blessings of the upright, a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked, it is overthrown. That's my reading from Proverbs chapter 11, 1 to 10. Back to you, Mr. Chairman, because I know you
Yeah.
have your agenda set out. So, and hopefully we'll be joined by Gregory Brackett. Hopefully,
Uh, it appears that he's in the background, maybe doing something. So,
yeah.
would you care to do a short public announcement just before I kick off?
Okay,
Maybe a
my
minute,
people,
a minute or so.
yes, my people, both at home and abroad. As we all know, we just came out of an election, general election yesterday, and the people had spoken. Despite of how the People's United Party got back that power, it doesn't matter. They got it. But what's sad is to see that the system just continue to do what they do to win an election. And sadly, the OAS, they were here, observers was here to observe free and fair and democratic election. Sadly, you hear it's public knowledge, the speech from the representative of the OAS, one of the observer. Oh, they liked it and it was free and fair and democratic. But then, what's out there and what reality, it's not so. So sad that
Mr. Wade,
they failed
Mr.
to see reality.
Mr. Wade, what do these people really know? Or
So, Mr.
how much they
Chairman,
really learn,
yeah,
before they show up
yeah.
and then
So,
go back and make their report.
yes, sir. So all I'm saying, it's not the first time, and I had stressed, the same way they denounced Mr. Maduro wasn't free and fair election, and they did not, the observers. I think, the same way they should have done this election, based on all what's going on and in real time. Right? They came here for one day and 2 days, and 2 days, 3 days, and they think they seen it all. But I say to them that's a lie, right? Well, I don't know which constituency they went and sat down and watched, right? But if they watch social media and watch in real time what is been put out there for the public consumption, it's a different narrative. And it's not the first time. It's a continuous situation in this country, the two-party system, the way they garnish their votes and the way they lead their people on election day, you know, it's not going to change. So sad. Election is won in this country by the party that has the most money, by the party that controls the people's purse, right? The country's purse that controls the people's assets, the country's natural resources, and the country's government agencies. That's how election is won in this country. right? So until the people decide to say no more of that shenanigans, well then it will be a repetitious cycle.
Thank you very much, sir.
$100 for vote, up to 250. I had said it before, and they want evidence. I have shown evidence, and the cycle continues, right? Public consumption as to how much they were paying for votes, paying money. So the observers, when they say about free and fair and democratic, I am lost on those words. I don't know exactly what they meant about that, about those words. Free, fair, and democratic. That's the three words that they use, which is so sad, and it's a lie. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Uh, Thank you very much, Mr. Wade. Uh, I see Greg is in the. Okay, I think he's on, if I'm not mistaken. But he's on, I think, with uh, we're not seeing his picture, no? He has a, what do you call it now? Okay, let me not get into all of that. Let me just check something here quickly. Okay, I think maybe he might be busy. Greg,
Mm-hmm.
you're still busy in the background, sure? You wasn't ready to come on yet. I can leave you alone then. Were you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Were you ready? I was just checking because I saw this. I saw the emblem, but I didn't. Anyhow, let me stop babbling. Quickly. You gonna stay on now, or do you wish to continue what you're doing so I could, could you answer me?
Well, Leonard, I think he's blacked out there.
Yeah, that's
He's
what I was
just,
trying to figure
he's
out what's
not
going
really
on.
ready.
Okay. All right. Tonight
Mm-hmm.
I want to mash a few corns tonight.
Man, she have to try. He could talk and see we say because some people wait 10 years, 14 years.
Uh,
You just start September and look what you done day. Cause I had to put in the work, you know.
Yeah.
uh, Greg, Greg.
Go
No, than
ahead.
April of last year.
Um, uh,
Oh,
I
Greg,
think
No, you
yeah,
started to
Greg.
try.
I think he
Oh,
wasn't.
yeah,
He
he
was.
stepped out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I am disconnecting because he was busy doing something in the background, and I
Hmm.
wasn't aware whether or not he needed my assistance to bring him on. So I brought him on, but apparently he's still involved with what he's doing. No?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he doing
So
something in the
let's
background. Yeah. Go
in the
ahead.
interest of time, though, let's proceed.
Hmm.
Then he could bring himself on when he's ready. So
Oh yes.
let's leave that alone. Okay, back to what the program for tonight intended was to try and make it be is that I'm gonna mash a few corns, step on a few toes, and maybe throw a few sharp elbows in tonight's program in regards to legal, constitutional, and case law issues. So I know some people are going to take umbrage to whatever is it that I have to say. I got to say it anyhow, regardless. They're entitled to taking their umbrage or having their own ideas, opinions, and conclusions. So am I, and I'm not going to swallow my tongue in order to facilitate or stay silent when people are trashing my country, destroying my country, browbeating the people, taking advantage of our system, and decimating our system as we currently know it. As the vanguard of my country, I will always be on the front line, taking on whoever it is, without any exception. I'm no respecter of any person, entity, or thing when it comes to the territorial integrity of my country and the well-being of my people. So don't ask me to apologize. Don't expect no apologies from me when I have to tell you about yourself because you're taking advantage of my people. That's my right, And if you don't like so, do your next best. So here I go. Our country is currently going through a series of tragic errors, faults, I would say a few omissions from what is supposed to be truth or honesty. Our legal system is being hauled and pulled and manipulated contrary to the constitutional prescripts that our constitution direct our system to operate under. For example, I'll be straight to that particular point. Any judge that makes rulings in any case that comes before them in our country are supposed to be ruling on the basis of laws, whether it be the Constitution directly itself in constitutional matters, or laws that are substantive laws made by the House of Representatives, the Congress of our country per se, and which are assented to by the head of state or the Governor General in representation thereof. But in order for that to happen, and it has been happening in the past, and my reason for complaining now about it is that it's not happening now. There's a total reversal of what we knew was our legal system and our country that has always been said to be a country of laws. We've had a series of rulings at our High Court, which was formerly known as the Supreme Court, and those rulings, they do not comport to our Constitution, while yes, they may comport to the fact that judges are authorized to make, and not make, but are authorized to interpret the Constitution and or laws, and to guard those laws so that if there's any law breaking, when it's called law actions on the part of individuals, whether in or out of government, then those laws are there to keep them in check and or to exact retribution on behalf of the people and or the state. It hasn't been happening recently, which is my reason for having to make these comments tonight and indulge in this activity as if I was actually calling in to recruit irrationally and or unfairly our judges and our legal system. Yes, I'm calling them into disrepute. I'm not the one creating the disrepute. I'm just pointing it out. I'm calling into disrepute the fact that people who wear the robes and sit on our bench as judges to impart judgment and within fairness, with good judicial temperament, and within the laws of our country. I want to go to specifically the most current and most egregious of the rulings. For example, and please bear with me because I'll be making statements and clarifying those statements for contextual reasons, because I do not wish to be misunderstood and or I do not wish to mislead anyone. Far from any of those. I always overemphasize what I'm trying to say to the point of being sometimes overbearing, because I'm saying the very same thing in many different ways, hoping that I'll get the majority of the people to understand what is it I'm saying, rather than just talking over some people's head, because I'm trying to get to the mind and attention of the legal community and or people who are in high places. And there's only certain kind of way that you can talk to them or reach their mindset and deal with them within the context of what the law prescribes. As I previously said just a minute ago, I am aggrieved at a particular ruling that was made. That is to say, in the matter of Mr. Enriquez versus the Attorney General and the Election and Boundaries Department and other entities or individuals in the governance structure, the case was not adequately given a full constitutional review and or hearing. But yet the case was abridged and declared to be faulty and being basically, for all intents and purposes, thrown out of the system. While at the same time, the government primary attorney, and I'll call name too, Mr. Imon Courtney, for example, got on the airwaves and said to the public, now listen to me, please listen carefully. It is not the government's expectation, after the case was bastardized the way it was, to go after Mr. Enriquez. But he was inclined to have the impression that the court should sanction Mr. Enriquez's lawyer. Basically, what the good, I shouldn't even call he's not a good gentleman, because he's not a gentleman and he's not good. He's nefarious, and I would say even to the point of evil. For being as skilled a lawyer as he is, competent, experienced, but lend his services to evil and nefariousness. That is to say, use the powers of the government, advocate on behalf of the government, to let the government continue violate the constitution of the very same country that he is a member of, and the constitution that gives him the privilege to be able to act as a lawyer in our community. But yet this fool can turn around and intimate that the judge should sanction another lawyer for daring to get involved in a Belizean case. And this lawyer now, for example, that he's referring to is a non-Belizean, but that has the right to do legal services in Belize. Okay? But he wants the government, not the government, he wants the court, or he was proposing that the court should sanction this other lawyer. And the background of this intent for him to want the lawyer to be sanctioned is to intimidate the foreign lawyer from being able to come to the assistance of Mr. Enriquez and or any other Belizeans who dare to get legal services from foreign lawyers to fight for the government, because the government is bastardizing our laws. So the government is going to pay him to try and come up with intimidation tactics against the other lawyers, but in order to get to that point where he can intimidate the other lawyers, the plaintiff case have to be found faulty to the point of failure. That is to say, the judge has a justifiable and judicial right within proper judicial temperament to squash the case. Not having heard the case, or not necessarily heard, but not having given the case a full constitutional review and addressing the constitutional failures, but to leave that constitutional breach available for the government to continue breaching. And for him, Mr. Courtney, to get the judge to help him intimidate the other lawyer, Mr. Courtney, going to recommend that they should charge the other lawyer for cost. That is not how the system normally works. That's another bastardization of our process and our judicial system. Because in order to get to the plaintiff lawyer, the case must be lost by the plaintiff, and the plaintiff then is the one who should have to pay for costs, not his lawyer or her lawyer. That's a travesty and a bastardization of we judicial process that has 1,000 years behind it or underneath it, to which you will not find cases like those any other part of the world. Yes, you will find cases where a judge would sanction a lawyer for contempt of court. But you can't sanction a lawyer because his client case was lost, or that the other lawyer won the other case by virtue of default, and or maybe by the judge's. In fact, I'll go to the extreme and classify what actually is the case. The judge's malfeasance, because I'll clarify that as well, why I use that particular term. The judge is supposed to be sitting on the bench to rule according to law, not according to personal convenience. And when these judges are being brought from outside of our country, the Attorney General and other individuals review these judges or potential or future judges' CVs. They review previous cases that they sat on. They review their judicial temperament as to how they behave and how they act and how they rule. And as a matter of fact, in this particular case, this judge had worked under or worked in a country where the leader of that country was a dictator and was pulling the legal system of that country, which also came from a similar legal system as ours. So when these judges or these persons are being brought in, they come recommended by the Attorney General and the Attorney General's office after reviewing these people's CV and their law practice or judicial temperament. And when our government hired them, they hired them with a contract. They're not being paid or hired to work on a day-to-day basis. They're being hired on a contractual basis. And any of these contracts, if and when the government feels that they need to, they can revoke and pay these judges off and send them out the country or dispatch them. Because that is the basis on which their contract is written up. They're working not with tenureship, they're working under a contractual agreement with the Attorney General's office and the government of Belize. And some of these judges don't want to find themselves as previous judges had done. That is, to find themselves having to rule against the government because of the government's bastardization of the Constitution, and the judges supposed to rule according to law. And we have had judges in the past that rule according to law and had their contract being taken away from them. Not all judges are going to give up their contract before they find another job to go and work. So some judges would and have subordinated their personal interests as compared to the interests of the system to have the laws be held and kept faithfully. Because they also swear an oath when they assume the position as judges. And the least they should do is, in addition to all the experience that they have had as judges and the knowledge that they have acquired is that when they come to a new location to work under contract, they should learn and know something about the constitution of that particular jurisdiction. And don't bring old beef and old style and types of rulings that they have had before in other countries, that kind of behavior is tolerable. For example, like a Mugabe. Anybody know who President Mugabe is? That's the president I'm talking about. That some of these lawyers that are all present judges are basing their judgment in Belize, which is why their judgment and their uh, I'm baffling a little bit. Let me just get back to the point. Mr. Mugabe is a totalitarian. We don't have that kind of system in Belize where we prime minister acting as a president and as somebody that is sitting above the laws or decides what the law is going to be from one day to the next as they wake up. We do have a prime minister right now that wishes that were the case, as per his own expression before, to complain that the constitution is holding him a bay from doing some things that he would like to be able to do, but that he can't do because of our constitution. That is why we have the constitution, to stop jackals like those from being able to overreach and do things that they're not supposed to do to the public or the people. So that I'm going back to my point now as regards to the judges, because I don't want to stray from that. I want that to sink in. I want people to really understand what I'm talking about and what is it that I'm saying. And I'm prepared to deal and accept any consequences from any of them. That is to say, want to claim that I'm libeling them or that I'm bringing them into disrepute. Because I should not have to be put in a situation such as this to be complaining about these shortcomings and these errors, omissions, oversights, and, in my estimation, deliberate bastardization of our constitution. While they're hurting we people, they are being paid to play shell game with us and to give we leadership or we government people one pass when they commit crimes against the people under the color of law. That should not be, and it's intolerable. And I'm not going to sit by and watch that kind of shenanigans happen, and I'm not going to have something to say. So I'm going to exercise my God-given prerogative and my rights, my human rights. I'm going to exercise my constitutional rights as a born Belizean, carrying a Belizean passport. If they want to sue me or carry me to court or whatever they want to do, good luck. That's their right. But I'm also exercising my right. And my constitution says that I'm entitled to complain about what I see is wrong. Now, it's not everybody going to get up and point out these things or complain about these things, especially in public. Because it's not an easy street to walk on. There's a lot of pebbles, a lot of nails, a lot of all kind of stuff, broken bottles and all kind of stuff. And especially if you walk barefooted, you're bound to get cut somewhere or another, or get hurt one way or another. But I could care less. At the end of the day, I want them to know that there are people out here as Belizeans who are conscious and are able to decipher their shenanigans and who are willing to call them out about it. Now, my calling them out about it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to change or do better, but at least they will be advised that there are people who are watching, seeing what's happening, and are willing to talk about it. So I'll go back again to the point. That is that I take umbrage and I'm highly aggrieved and insulted about the fact that we Attorney General can bring lawyers and judges into we country to dispense justice to us, compromise justice at that, based on what they know about these individuals that the public doesn't know. Because don't tell me that these people were hired to be judges in our country, and the attorney general and the other people who hired them didn't know their temperament, did not check their CV, did not check their legal um, experience, and know that these people have that kind of temperament, that they are prepared to play games with the government and rule according to the government wishes, and to hell with the constitution and the people, to the point where they refuse to entertain the local Belizeans who step to the plate and try to demand that the government do the right thing on behalf of Belize, our country and people, and patrimony. So now, the smart head, Mr. Courtney, he go impress on the judge, and the judge agrees with him that they should go ahead and commit a crime against Mr. Against the lawyer, by the way. But as I explained to you, in order for them to be able to get to the lawyer, they had to go through Mr. Enriquez. So therefore, they're going to turn around and penalize Mr. Enriquez with a demand judgment. And when they have already said in public, the lawyer on behalf of the attorney general and the government had already stipulated in public on the public airwaves that they were not going to go after Mr. Enriquez, but that they wanted to go after the lawyer. And the reason why they wanted to go after the lawyer, he did not specify. But I am aware of that reason, and that is the reason that the man was willing to come and take the case basically for free in order to help keep the Constitution alive, and or to redeem the Constitution from these jackals that we have in the country. Both lawyers as well as attorney generals, prime minister. For a matter of fact, the attorney, the great Mr. Courtney, did not tell, did not impress on the judge when he was making this request from the judge that he had already sat in cabinet, not cabinet, sat at the prime minister's table during the Christmas holiday and decided how they was going to ransack the system to get the prime minister to have his election without any delay and without any hindrance. He did not confide that in the judge. Otherwise, he himself should have been put on some sanctions for contempt of court. That is to say, having sat and planned with his client that he is defending, how they will bastardize the laws of the country, but come to the court and tell the court a different kind of story in order to get the court to rule on their behalf. It's just crazy. I'm going to stop for a little bit and just let some of the other panelists in. But I have a lot more to say about this in terms of clarifying what is it I'm saying and some of the details. But I yield to Mr. Wade for right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to
Welcome, sir.
welcome our next senior panelist. I see him now. Show him, Mr. Gregory Brackett. Go ahead, Greg.
Thank you,
Nice to
Mr.
have you, my
Wade.
friend.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mr. Wade. Good night to you,
thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Good night to the people at home and abroad. It feels good to be back here on the platform
Amen.
discussing Belizean affairs. I thank you all for tuning in to this 267th edition. I was here in the background, Mr. Chairman, and I was listening to your open conversation. And I want to join in that conversation because I want to stipulate again to the people at home and abroad, regardless of how one may see it. The High Court is at bar to answer any political question. The High Court can only rule on justiciability and not justiciability. There is a difference where one is asking a political question and where one is the law, for example, the Constitution or any other law that is broken. I want to say this to the people at home and abroad. There was and there still is a heated debate about the redistricting and the cases that was filed before the election. I want to say to you that Section 90 of our Constitution says that the government should do redistricting. And below Section 90, there follows a lot of different parts that says how the government should do the redistricting. But I want to also implement again that there is nowhere in the Constitution that the Constitution compulsory say the government must do redistricting. And you will not find this because, as I said, the High Court, through separation of powers, is barred from getting involved in any political question. I want to go first to the case that was filed by Mr. Enriquez. During the filing for an injunction, you heard what was mentioned, that the reason for his filing was to stop the election from taking place because it was illegal. Again, here I want to stipulate there is nowhere in the world, in any country, you will find a court that will stop an election from taking place because they are barred by the separation of powers. So the moment they mentioned that is what they were filing for, I personally, as I said, knew that it will not be stopped by the court. Now I want to go to the other case filed by the Belize Peace Movement, one formerly and the present one. Again, I look at it, and again, I believe that the cases were filed and as a part of the filing, they were asking the court to answer to a political question. Because, as I said, there is nowhere in the Constitution it compulsory say the government must do the redistricting. I have stated before, I believe that what the parties should have done was to file under the Constitution for violation of one's fundamental right. The fundamental right of equal protection under the law and freedom of expression. And I believe, and I don't even want to use the word I believe, had these cases was filed under that, it then would have placed the High Court in a position that it must make a ruling because it then becomes violation of our constitutional rights. Now, as anyone can see the outcome of the election and why redistricting is necessary, because you see the indifference when it comes to the voting. 5-1 in some areas, 10-1 in some areas. This is what is called gerrymandering. And in three cases, you
Amen to that.
have individuals who won by default, which made it history. Now, when you have 7,000 people plus that did not get a chance to go to the poll to freely cast their vote as required by the Constitution, it then becomes a fundamental right, a inalienable right that is given to everyone by our Constitution.
Greg,
Yes, Mr. Brackett.
uh, I just want to say that what you presented just now are meritorious points, but is going in an extraneous way that will end up changing the focus that I started with. For example, the same thing that is happening right now is what the strategists they do in the court as regards to what is it that I was complaining about initially. Anyhow, that is, they leave the elephant in the room, which is the focus of the issue of the violation of the Constitution, and they go and they discuss extraneous matters and then rule on those matters and leave the elephant in the room, the violation of the Constitution, intact. Why? Because they start discussing points and issues that are germane to something else, and the something else becomes the focus of attention and the basis of the ruling, which is what I was classifying initially as bastardization of our system. The very exact thing is happening currently right now. That is, I could entertain the discussion and clarify from my vantage point why is it that what you present just now have its merits, but that is the argument that those people were using to get the court and the system to help them achieve their objective. That is part of the things that Mr. Courtney was strategizing and planning as a top lawyer in order to facilitate the government violate the Constitution and to get the judges to rule on behalf of the government position, right? That the government was more believable than the people that brought the case against the government, because those people are not supposed to be as smart and as good as the government lawyers and people them. And therefore, the implication is that they didn't know what they were doing, they didn't know how to approach the case, and they got spin around on a dime and ending up answering, well, not even answering, because they wasn't given a chance for the case to be heard, much less answer. Because those are the facts as we now know them to be with hindsight. I'm saying to you, while the points that you was bringing up are meritorious points, it's a different discussion or a different argument, or there's a different series of points that allows for the diversion of the focus of what the issue is at hand. So we can either have this debate on this diversion that you brought up, or we can have the debate on what I initially set out as the premise for the program for the night. They are both meritorious. There are good lawyers on both sides. We have just had it happen in the country, as a matter of fact, which is what we were talking about, right? one lawyer trying to stick to an issue that needed attention, and the other lawyer come in like a slick, high-powered lawyer, bamboozle the way through the process, submit one whole lot of document that had nothing to do with the original case submitted, and the judge got caught up into reading all.
Mr.
Just wait,
Brackett, if
wait,
I
just a minute,
may.
just a minute, please, please. I need to clarify. I will give back. I'll give you back. I'll yield back to you in a minute, sir. Just give me one little moment. Round up what I was saying, right? Please. Okay. The judge got spin around on a dime and start reading and digesting all those volumes of material that was presented to the judge, 800 pages worth in one instance, which had nothing to do with the submittal that the plaintiff initially submit the case on. And the judge ruled on those extraneous discussion and outcomes, and the damn constitutional violation still remains unattended to, for which the matter was brought to court. And but anyhow, I will have other opportunities, but I was just trying to point that out to you that I could indulge in going along with the side conversation that you're now trying to have about the election itself and about political issues and so on. I'm not talking about the political issue. I'm talking about the judicial system that has been screwed up and is being abused and misused contrary to proper constitutional requirements.
Mr. Brackett, if
Okay?
I may,
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
the
I yield.
political issue
Drop
is
the
tied
Greg,
to the
Greg,
judicial
Greg,
issue.
Greg. I'm
You
trying to ask
cannot
you. I'm trying to ask you.
separate them
Do not
when that
get
is a part of how it was presented.
no, Greg. What Mr. Courtney did was to try and make this thing appear to be like these men
Mr.
were
Brackett,
fighting the government. That is what that's what the prime minister said.
Mr.
These people
Brackett,
are coming
let
after
me
him.
answer that for you, please.
Okay.
Let me answer it for you. I will say this right here now to the people at home and abroad. Anyone personal opinion or feelings as to how those cases or these cases was ruled on does not matter. If they committed conspiracy, if they got together, whatever they presented, because at the end of the day,
Greg,
the
stop the
High
laughing.
Court is
Give me a,
barred from answering any political question.
which
So
is what
I
I'm
don't
trying.
care
Ju-
how you want to deem it, it was turned, or what wasn't done, or what was said.
Okay, can I enter the conversation? I'm saying that I started out the program tonight dealing substantively with legal, constitutional, judicial temperament issues. I did not want to get into the political aspect of it because, for all intents and purposes, as of right now, that's a horse that has already left out the barn, and that race has been run, and whoever won or whatever, and that's not coming back. I'm trying to present a different program tonight, and I'm spending the time going back and forward with you to try and get you to understand that what you're talking about is what Mr. Courtney and the Prime Minister and the whole rest of them and the whole court matter as of right now, the way they're pushing it to the public and everybody else and ruling on it is what I don't want to get into right now because I'm complaining about it having been like that. And that's not the way it's supposed to have been. I'm
Okay,
trying to bring the
Mr.
attention back.
Brackett. Let
I'm
me
trying to
let
bring
me
the
ask
focus
the
back.
question.
No, wait.
Let me ask a
Wait,
question.
wait, just a minute. You're cutting me off.
We will stick to
You're cutting me off
judicial
again.
as you want to. Let's ask the question. What part of the Constitution compulsory says the government must do redistricting?
Greg, are you thinking about that question that you just asked, sir? Or are you telling me that it's not a constitutional issue? No care how you ask that question, it will never get around to the point of not being constitutional as a question. Because the Constitution does specify, first of all, it says it in the preamble, okay, that people have a right to vote as compared to what one of previous Attorney General had indicated that Belizeans don't have no constitutional right to vote. And I laid that to rest by citing in the Constitution, in the preamble and the Constitution, where those rights are. And that was an Attorney General. That is a person that had decades of legal experience that was advocating that. So I'm used to that kind of stuff, my cousin.
Then let
I'm
me
saying to
ask the
you, I'm
second
saying,
question.
no, wait.
How
Let me
does
finish.
the
Yeah.
redistricting violate the Constitution?
You try carry me at the same woods them to have a discussion on those same, what I call right now, what's the name called? Let me not, you try and use up the time for me to have a discussion with you on something else that is other than the program that I'm trying to entertain tonight, which I'm trying to bring to your attention again for a second or third time. That's a discussion that is worthy of having, but that is not the discussion I'm trying to have tonight. There's a
Mr.
difference.
Chairman, I believe that the discussion we should be having
But
is
Greg, am I not the chairman?
what
Wait,
caused the court to
Am I not the
rule,
chairman for tonight?
not
Sir,
judicially,
sir, I don't want
for
to
the
be unkind.
cases.
I don't want to be unkind or being rude or overbearing or, But am I not the chairman for tonight? When you are the chairman for your nights, or Mr. Weir is the chairman for his night, don't we have a standing agreement among us that each of us will present whatever is it that we want to present on that particular night? So I'm trying to abide by the rules and the regulations, and I'm trying to remind you about our standing commitment to each other. So let me have my program for tonight, my brother. That's all I'm asking for.
Go ahead, sir.
And I'm
You
trying
have
to
the
say to
floor.
you that, yeah, and I was trying to say to you that you're changing the focus of what is it that I'm trying to attempt to do is not helping me along to finalize and conclude or use up the time discussing something else that is worthy of discussing, but this is not what I'm trying to get for tonight. That's all I'm asking. And thank you very much for yielding the flow, okay? I'm just trying to present a specific thing that I came here targeting. And we can't, in one session, deal with all the things that we could deal with or should be able to deal with. Because we consider I was about to make a bad statement. We consider in a bad situation, and maybe we could help and leave it, and we should try and help as much as we could. Because we know people who are able to help. In fact, we shouldn't have to be in a situation in the first place. But we have people who are able to help, who are not willing to put a toe in the water, much less get in and swim. Right? So we try to really part. But if I'm going to get filibuster and not being able to present my part of the program that I'm trying to present, then that's not fair to me, which is why I'm, but you already yield, and, I shouldn't have to be carrying on anymore about it, but the point is that there was something I was trying to bring for the night then, right? And let me see if I can get back to that point. That is that we have judges that are being brought to our country, okay, to rule and render judgment according to law. The laws of our country are being suborned right now by shell game being played, both at the judiciary level in regards to the temperament of the type of judges that are being contracted, who are beholden to the Attorney General and the government for their contracts or contract extension or whatever else is not, And I'm saying that from my vantage point, I'm taking the liberty of putting myself out there and explaining away why is it that I think what I think and I'm trying to say what I'm saying, and what constitutes fair enough public evidence to back up what I'm saying. I'm not just trying to say something out there that is new to anybody or that nobody should be capable of knowing or understanding. There are many other lawyers or people of legal mind that are much more sophisticated and more advanced and more credible and more experienced than myself. And all I'm trying to do is mess with their damn head to tell them how shitty they are in terms of being selfish and not being willing to put one penny in the process to try uphold our own constitutional laws and to have our system as we knew it before, because right now, currently, it is not as we knew it before. Everybody in Belize had the impression, and we should have still been able to have this impression, that Belize is a country of laws. That under Section 20, even if it's the government, much less any other civilian, violates your right, you should be able to go to the court, plead your case with your lawyer or your one or whoever, or whatever the case might be, but get your case being heard, rather than for the judge, if you got it without one lawyer, which most judges don't like people come unrepresented before them, right? Because in the first place, they're at a disadvantage, not knowing the process or the procedures or what documents to file, when to file them, and whatever else. I mean, so much peculiarity that is involved in the legal system. And I'm trying to complain about the legal system because I know what it's supposed to be about. I understand what our legal system under what you call uh, a country of laws. I know what is to be expected compared to a country where we have these authoritarian people that just rule by decree and or by whatever come out of their mouth or their mind at any given time. And I'm trying to complain about that tonight. And I don't want to go back and relitigate the election or anything that has to do with how people was trying to conflate and say that it's a political question or it's an election question or whatever. I'm trying to deal with the fact that we have a much more serious question or issue. We have judges that are, in my estimation, based on how they have conducted themselves, I'm using the evidence of their own conduct as a basis for my premise of intimating what I'm intimating. That is, they're ruling shitty, they're misbehaving, and I could point out part of the reason why I think they are misbehaving, such as being beholden
Is
to their
it
own
is
contract.
it
That's
safe
all
to
I'm
say
trying to
then,
say.
sir,
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
that you
Are
believe
you
it is a legalized conspiracy?
Amen.
Is it safe to say
case,
that
rest,
that is your belief?
case rested, as it would be said in the courts? Do you want us then, as a matter of fact, of course, most people know, get the full details or the backup for what my allegations are or my stipulations are, which I would have liked to partake.
I
But in the interest of you asking that particular question, right, which was an ask and answered question as far as I'm concerned, which is why I clap so hard when you pose the question, because within the question there's the answer, right? So it brings a finality to my ranting, except that most of the average people below our level has not gotten the benefit of the
I
explanation
asked the
on what I'm
question.
saying.
I asked the question based on what you was discussing, but
Which
then
is
it
my point.
comes to mind: if the court had ruled against the government, then what?
The man can chuck me and get terminated. And we need judicial temperament judges to
No,
be of that level.
no.
They
I
must
will say
rule
this.
according to law.
I
So
will say
accordingly,
this.
I'm
The
sorry.
court,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
and I hate to be argumentative, if the court had ruled against the government, they would be in violation of the Constitution. The
No, Mr.
Constitution
Brackett.
set forth
No,
how
Mr. Brackett. Can
election
I
should
explain
be
why no?
done,
Yes, but can I explain why
the
no, sir?
separation of powers.
It's a different debate. But let me explain why I say no. First of all, the government acknowledged, by virtue of their own legal representation in the court before the judges on this particular issue that we're talking about here right now, they acknowledged that they were in breach of the Constitution, and they begged the court to let them enter into a consent decree with the plaintiff, instead of having the court to rule on the matter right there and then after they had acknowledged that they were in breach. They didn't want a ruling against them. They asked for the privilege to go and remedy, because that's all the plaintiff wanted, to have the matter remedied. So they agreed to go and remedy, but only use that time to turn around and play another sleight of hand shell game. And then the judge turned around and said, despite that the plaintiff brought the case and the government agree that the case was a valid case and that the plaintiff was right, because the judge did not had the privilege or taken the opportunity to rule as per the government acknowledgement, that is, the plaintiff was right and ruling the plaintiff on the plaintiff's behalf. The
Mr.
government went
Chairman,
and did a shenanigan and then came back and the judge said, in order to get rid of the man and Tamlin um, agreement case, I'm ruling on the Tamlin agreement that you entered into. I'm not ruling on the substantive case. That case can be brought by somebody else. The judge intimated as well, right? Because it was a live, valid issue that needed to be redressed and was not redressed, but that you failed as a client when you entered into that agreement with the government. That truncated my ability to rule on your behalf. Whatever came out of your agreement between you and the government, the judge was saying in 41 pages, as a matter of fact, it took to say that, okay, that
I got
they would,
uh,
the judge was throwing out
oh,
the case, or the case was for all intents and purposes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Go ahead, sir.
the topic on tonight's show is one that is well deserved because we need to get it out there. But as a part of Belizean affairs, I know how we run our programs. We always show and tell. And I believe that when we speak about topics like this, we must let the people at home and abroad know what is happening. That is why I asked if the judge had ruled against the government, what would have been the outcome. But to prove the point, I want to go to the tape, sir.
Wait,
Before you say anything,
okay.
can I go to the
Greg, no,
tape?
no, 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 no. Wait, Greg, wait. The tape is going to be very substantive, but to the question that you asked, it would have been unconstitutional for the judge to rule in favor of the of the government when the government has already acknowledged that they were in breach of the Constitution and that they needed to go and remedy and do what the plaintiff was asking to have done, remedy the constitutional breach. How would I or you or anybody else say that if the judge had went ahead and made a ruling instead of allowing, because it was the judge's rights to allow that agreement to be entered into, the judge retained judicial jurisdiction, okay? All Section 20 cases that goes to the court has what you call um, um, oh man, I messed up. Um, okay, original jurisdiction, okay? So when the judge allowed that Tomlin agreement to be entered into, the judge didn't dispatch the case, or the case didn't come up to a finality then. The judge still retained judicial jurisdiction and decided when the man then gone back to us to force the government to comply with the agreement. The judge said, no, you not force the government to comply with no agreement, that you and they enter into that. That's a flaw. Your case is no flawed.
as as
That
as
was just
one
a
of the
tip.
Mr. Chairman, can I
Go
just
ahead, sir.
interject just a little? Give me a minute, just 1 minute. As one
Sir,
of the claimant in
oh, I'm sorry.
this
I'm sorry.
case, I will not discuss anything that's in the court. But what I will say now is that it's sad to see how these judges, and I said it pointed out clearly, Mr. Chairman, that it's sad to see that these judges comes from other part of the world, and a lot of them do not understand or have any knowledge of our constitution
Or customs.
or
But
custom
anyhow,
or tradition.
but Mr. Weird, can I come back to you
So
after my
I
late
say
Mr.
this to
Weird?
say, and I will say no more.
No, 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 sir. We need your input. We do need your input. But could we just, in the interest of fairness to Mr. Greg, who was waiting and allowed me to take over the time that he was trying to use to make the final the tape presentation. That I ask him to just give me another shot, and then
Go
but
ahead, go ahead, and I'll leave back to
make it
Greg.
30, and then we could come back to you again, Mr.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you haven't waited enough, and you need your time.
No, I will not
To
wait anymore
no,
because
no, no, no. We need you. We need
yeah, yeah.
Judge Greg.
Mr.
Go ahead, go
Chairman,
ahead, Greg.
Mr.
Can you go back to
Chairman,
you,
thank
Greg,
you.
please? Yes, sir.
But as I expressively said, the High Court cannot violate the Belize Constitution. The High Court
Should not.
would not have ruled against the government because of separation of powers. And I want the people at home and abroad to see what happens when a court do that. Let's go to the video.
In a democracy, the powers are shared among arms of government. Each arm can restrain the others from exerting too much power. The judiciary can review, the president can veto, and the parliament can override. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? A federal high court in Abuja on Wednesday restrained the National Assembly from acting further on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, wherein it changed the sequence of elections among several other things. The president had earlier declined assenting the bill, but the lawmakers do not seem to agree with the court.
Mr. President, the issue really is not on the bill itself. The issue has to do with due process and parliamentary functions. I'm worried about the separation of powers as enshrined in our Constitution. The issue then is, can really the court, through an injunction, ex parte or otherwise, stop the parliament from carrying out its constitutional duties?
So there you have it. Plus the fact that the controversy around the sequence of elections is around the center of all of these politics makes it more intriguing, isn't it? So let's get perspective on this one politically, and of course we get some legal perspective. So I have two gentlemen, Leonard in their own right, in their own field. I have an associate professor in the political science department, University of Lagos, Dr. Kayode Isuola, on the program tonight on the panel, and I have Barrister Monday Oyekachi Ubanin is the second vice president of the Nigerian Bar Association. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Sure, my pleasure.
Maybe we should begin from a legal point of view, because this seems to be where the whole crisis is coming from. Does the court have the power to stop the parliament from its constitutional duty of making laws?
A general question, and I would say no.
So the court does not have the judiciary does not have the power.
Ordinarily would not stop another arm of government from exercising a role that is assigned by the Constitution. It's very, very clear. But let's look at what has just happened in this case to know whether the court has actually stopped another arm from exercising its powers. And I don't think so. If somebody feels aggrieved under our laws in this country, the only arm of government that we hear that particular grievance is the court. Now, the court has a right to say it has jurisdiction over a matter. It can also decline that it does not have jurisdiction. In exercise of its powers, the court must exercise those powers judiciously and judicially. And there must be wisdom in exercise of its powers. But before the court will come to that conclusion that it does not have a jurisdiction, the facts must be brought. You will look at the originating summons or your writ of summons and the reliefs you are seeking. And the court will be so conscious of the fact that when it exercises a power in vacuum, that wrongly, then that power is completely a nullity. And so the court is very careful. So what has happened in the case that came before the court was that a political party is alleging there is a grievance. He has suffered some grievance and he wants a preservation of the race pending the time that the motion on notice will be heard, and that is next Tuesday. And the court will always be eager to preserve the rest if there is any damage that cannot be quantified monetarily. You cannot be compensated by money. The court, under exercise of these powers, can grant an interim order pending the time all the facts will be made available. Then the court now will be in a better position to appreciate all the fine points of law, to know whether it has jurisdiction, whether what you are asking the court to do is to stop another arm of government from exercising its powers given to it by the Constitution.
But
it has not come to that law.
It's not stopped it, but he suspended it.
Yes, what he did is say, hold on. Let me preserve the rest. Somebody has approached me and he say he has a grievance, but I want you to come. You can come by preliminary objection and say, no, the court, you have no jurisdiction over this matter. The court now will now make a pronouncement that whether it has jurisdiction or not. So what the court has done is people are crying that it's sacrilegious. They are crying blue murder. Nothing has been done wrongly. It is on Tuesday when the court will hear all the parties. When the facts are presented, the court will now be in a position to say, oh, I have jurisdiction over this matter. I have no jurisdiction. So for now, the court is still vested with the power to ensure that when somebody runs to it for grievance, that I have suffered any grievance, the court must hear that person and preserve the rest. Spending the time, all parties will be here. So nothing has, as somebody will say in our local palace, nothing has spoiled.
It looks so much for the lawmakers. They are aggrieved and they're planning to write to the CJN over this matter to say, look, in a matter of issues or principles of separation of powers where leadership is entrenched, it looks as though something is gone wrong. This is a political matter.
That's right.
And interests are here. Can the court really say that it has jurisdiction on this matter?
That's what I'm telling you now. Now, as lawyers, we are being, careful every matter that is in court because it's sub judice. I cannot in any way make any pronouncement as whether the court has any right to do what it's doing. But as I said earlier, on Tuesday, this matter will be presented before the court. The National Assembly will come with all their facts, or any of the parties in the case will come, and the court now will now look at both the contending party or the person that is aggrieved and look at all the facts and then make a decision. So for now, what the court has only done is to preserve the rest. It's important is, this is done because somebody is saying, look, the National Assembly does not have the right to do what they have done. The president has refused assent. And then they are now threatening to override the veto powers of the president, which will now automatically translate that particular bill into law. And I will be wronged. So let them not exercise that power until you hear my grievance, until you hear what I'm bringing before the court. So that is actually the state as the tweet is now. So it is only when the court has heard all the parties, then the court will make a pronouncement. But I'll tell you this, the court is very conscious of its powers. It will not in any way unduly interfere with another arm of government in exercising its powers. It will not.
We'll see how that plays out. So let's take some political advice from the expert here. Dr. Iswola, as it stands right now, from the principles of separation of powers, which is some of the cardinal principle of what democracy stands for, has anything gone wrong?
Well, in my view, nothing really has gone wrong. What the court has done, as the barrister said, is to place a hold pending the hearing of all the details of the parties involved so that decisions will be taken. But my take is a bit different. Perhaps you want me to make an amendment. What the court has done is not to usurp the power, is to examine the issue. And in my view, the issue on ground is absolutely political. It's an issue that has to do with election. Election is a political issue. It has to do with democracy and how we practice it in Nigeria. If you look at the three parties involved, you have the presidency, you have the judiciary, and then you have the legislature. Which amongst them has the greatest stake when it comes to the issue of election and democracy? The answer is the legislature. The president sits in Abuja, although was voted in directly by the electorate, but two things. He represents the interests of a political party, one. Two, it is not everyone who voted for the president. Some voted for the opponent. If you look at the legislature does not represent one political party. All parties that are registered in Nigeria have representatives in the National Assembly. Besides, the role is to go back to the constituencies and get the feelers from the people. Vox the populae, vox Dei. The people will tell the representatives, this is what we think about this policy. So I am calculating that it must have been the peoples of Nigeria, democratically I put that as, who told their representatives to go back to their chambers, upper and lower, and said, this timetable does not go down well with us. In that sense, I think politically, the legislature has done something right. But however, once somebody has gone to court, I think it is the duty of the judiciary to suspend action while it looks into it, get the details, do the analysis, and then allow a pronouncement to come up for the benefit of Nigeria. And then in saying that, we need to be careful of the level of political development of our country. The question is, at this point in the history of our country, at this point, at this level of political development, what are we to protect? What are we to protect? The law, the people, the democracy? These three questions, when we answer them, then we know how to apportion blame to who does what.
Nice, nice tape, nice presentation.
There you
Very,
go,
very.
Mr. Chairman. Exactly what I was saying.
Can I make one
Go
statement?
ahead, sir.
What the gentleman were talking about as regards to the court making the ruling that the court made to have all the bits and pieces brought to the court, everybody bring their own positions, and the court will look at what they're talking about, is because in our constitution as well, it speaks to what is known in the constitutional judicial parlance or way of speaking about original jurisdiction. The court maintains original jurisdiction in anything that has to do with legal interpretations under the Constitution. Now, the judicial, now the legislative body can always go back and amend their legislation based on what the court has stipulated. They're entitled to make laws a million times over and over on the same point if they wish to. That's their responsibility. That's their powers given to them under the Constitution. The executive is to carry out the functions of the law based on the policies of state that are being implemented. But if those policies of state, somebody becomes aggrieved over it, they have the right to go back to the court under original jurisdiction. The gentleman did not state that as a matter of statement or words, but that's what he was speaking to. But anyhow, let me stop elaborate. I think, was it you, Greg, or Mr. Wade? I think both of you was about to say something, but then
No,
I
go
tried
ahead.
to jump in to clarify that one point about original jurisdiction. Go
Go
ahead,
ahead, Greg.
on the tape that you
As
just
was,
presented.
as I stated, whenever you are aggrieved, yes, Section 20 of our Constitution is there for judicial review,
Mhm.
and you can take it to the court. As per the tape I just played, the court would stay away from political question, as was mentioned. The court will only rule on justiciable matters. Now,
Oh,
when I first came on the show and I was speaking, I said if I was the one filing against the government for redistricting, how I would have done that. And to back that up, I know we had a conversation. I was speaking about 7,000 individuals, including myself, who did not get a chance per our constitution, equal protection, and freedom of expression to
equal
go
rights.
to the poll to
Greg,
cast my vote.
Greg, there's the equal protection, but there's the equal rights, which I think is the point that you need to address.
But
As you said, 7,000 plus one yourself did not get your equal rights exercised or your opportunity to exercise your
correct.
equal rights as everybody else.
And the main reason why I'm specifying this is because of this, and I can go to the tape.
Go ahead, sir. We're not seeing it, Greg.
And continuing with one of our top stories about the the woman that was transferred to a different district. 128,002 votes were cast in Wednesday's elections, but it would have been more if Marilee Flowers hadn't been disenfranchised. She showed up at the polling station early to vote to find out that her registration had been transferred to Hope Creek Village in Downgrega constituency. She says she doesn't even know where that is. And she didn't find out until she went to cast her vote and found that she was not on the list. She said she didn't give any authorization to be transferred, and she has no idea how this happened. Flowers spoke to us via telephone today with more details.
So he goes back in and he looks for it and he says, "Oh, here you are. But you're listed in Hope Creek." And I laughed because I was like, "Sir, I could be on the road passing that place, and I will tell you now, I cannot identify where Hope Creek is. So how am I listed in a totally different constituency than the one that I had registered in?" And he said, "Well, did you transfer?" And I said, "No, I did not." And then he proceeded to tell me, I'm not sure, but I'll make some calls. I'll see what happens." We stand outside for about 5 more minutes, and then all he tells me is that it was an error that had been made at the elections and boundaries department. And I keep asking, like, how is the mistake made? Like, I did not go in. I was not informed. I had been transferred. I never asked to be transferred. I never signed a document giving authority to anybody to transfer me. So how is it that my information can just be shifted around whenever they feel like it, by whosoever feels like it, whenever, and they're just like, "Well, I can't do anything. You can't vote. If you don't go to Hope Creek, then your ballot will not be casted." I didn't vote. I didn't get to vote. So my right to vote within my constituency for whichever political party I wanted to vote for was taken away from me. I had no say in the matter. My constitutional right was removed. And I, as a citizen of this country, I'm entitled to vote whenever there is an election, as long as I had registered. It shows you the blatant negligence that the Elections and Boundaries Department has, and that they're upholding. Because after I shared that post, and I thought it was a funny little story, I shared it on my WhatsApp. One of my friends told me, share it on Facebook. Shared it on Facebook. So many people commented and shared it and said, "Listen, you're not the first one, and you're probably not going to be the last." But the point is that I should be the last person. It should not be happening over and over and over. And people are like, "It happened to me last general elections. It happened to me with the municipal elections. It happened to me with village council elections." So it's showing you that this is happening across the country, and there's nothing being done because nobody wants to be the one to voice to give a voice to this, or to say, "Hey, something can be done or something should be done about this." I would like to know who authorized that transfer. And I want to know who did it and did not inform me. I want to know who gave them the power to take my personal information and put my signature on a piece of paper without my know-how. And I would like them to be fired. And I don't know how they're going to compensate me for literally diminishing my right, taking away something that is so fundamentally given to you just by being born in the country. Like, how are you going to compensate someone by simply saying, "Oh, well, you're not a citizen because you're not allowed to vote, because you're not allowed to do, you're not allowed to exercise your constitutional right"?
No, people at home and abroad, you see why I said I would have taken the government to court for violating the fundamental rights by not doing the redistricting. Because you know why they don't want to do it? It's because of what happened to this young lady. You will end up in areas where they have bringing people and flood the list. And when time to do the redistricting, they will have get caught.
Can I make one
That
sentence?
is what is happening.
One sentence to your tape, and that is that that young lady's scenario did not happen by accident or oversight. That was a deliberate process, and it's being done not only just now, but many other times, and will continue to be done, and will be done in a more massive way because that's another way for people to clear the numbers that they because most of these mass parties, especially the mass parties, know who their regular voters are, and they will only do that kind of stuff against the names of people that are known supporters of the other party.
To
So,
guarantee a win. That
and that
is
is
why
only
that
one
is
aspect.
done.
There are so many different ways that they're playing shenanigans and
Along with the
disrespecting and
gerrymandering.
messing with people. All of it is part of the same game.
No, Mr. Chairman, this brings me back to what I have said on this platform as to why the court should not have entertained itself with what was happening in a private entity with a constitution called the UDP. Like Mr. Enriquez, that judge should be penalized because he is barred by the doctrine of justiciability to answer a political question. He cannot say on the 31st of this month whether or either Mr. Barrow is the leader of the UDP or Miss Tracy Pantan. He is barred from answering that question. And again, I believe, as I said, it has to do with executive powers and aiding with what taking place.
Mr. Wade, it's your turn, sir. And before you go, can I just make one other one short one again, quickly? That is precisely what I had written up initially, a whole dissertation on, in terms of the judge, when I said the judge erred on that particular ruling that the judge had made on that particular day. In two instances. One, not knowing enough for the facts before awarding the property back to the person that had no rights or authority over it. Secondly, putting the case, the rest of the case, into abeyance until he or she heard about it when they want, even if it was after the election and not prior to the election, as we have found out now after the fact. We have hindsight now to validate those points that have been contending before now until now. I yield back, Mr. Wade. You wanted to say something on the first step, I think,
Thank
and you
you.
never weigh in. Please take all the
Uh,
time you need to.
um, I'll say this, it's always a pleasure to sit in your company here, Mr. Chairman and Gregory. I thank you so much, Gregory, for queuing up, and Leonard for bringing these things to light. And these are something that we have been talking about. I personally have been talking about the election and boundaries, right? I not too long ago I went public, stood up in a meeting and tell them their shortfalls and their the bastardization of the election and boundary system publicly, right? And some of them will stand up and look at me like I'm stupid or I don't know what I'm talking about, but you know that's
Just,
neither here nor there.
just
The
telling you
thing
come from
is
a good,
that here you
Mr.
go
Wade,
again.
telling you come from a good school.
So there you go, right? There you go again, Greg. I thank you. I thank
Oh,
you for
man.
showing. And who do not want to see these things that we queue up or hear these things that we talk about? The truth. Only the fanatics of the PUP, and we know most of them, right? And the fanatics of UDP, right? They do not want you to call out the ills because they all benefited. They all benefit. They all
Miss,
benefit. They all
Mr. Wade,
benefit of the ills,
Mr.
right?
Wade, if I may say this
Pa-
right,
So,
Party
the,
before country.
the
Party before
night
country.
when the election result was being mentioned and on Channel 7, Mr. Bradley was one of the hosts, senior counsel, and the question was put to him by Jules. Well, they have the end of the month, the 31st, where the High Court will pick who should be the leader, and you know what he said? The High Court can't do that. We
Well, we've been
know it.
saying this.
I've been saying it.
Leonard
But
been saying this.
this
You've
is
been saying
why
it.
we
You
need to
know.
call out these learned gentlemen and ladies because they represent the bar and they stand on the side and know the violation of the Constitution and they says nothing,
So,
especially the ones like them who are trying to educate the people and the Constitution per the government.
so
Let me
guys,
know,
I say this to say that,
Mr.
as
Greg.
always, I call on the media, the information center for the people, the media in Belize. They need to synthesize these kinds of illegalities, these kinds of corruption. Don't left it on three individual here, myself, Leonard, and you, Greg, to be bringing these things forward all the time, all the time, all the time. What happened to the media? What is their damn job in this country?
Their business
Sucking up
houses.
behind a damn politician or a damn party? You need to stop that, right? And you call yourself you love your country, Mr. Media Houses. I love your people. Is that the way you do that? Shame on you. And as for this last thing I say for the OAS observers, please retract that statement about free, fair, and democracy in Belize when it comes to election. That is so wrong. That lady there that you proclaim there, Greg, that's just one. Retract your statement. And I say this lastly, say that the election held on March 12th should be null and void. That's what you should say.
Because
Say
it
no
was
more.
rigged.
Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wade, and thank you, Greg. And the reason why they should say it was not legal is because it was not constitutionally abided by. The elections was not free because they take money from the treasury and then pay for it. Okay? For the campaign and for the election and the election day bash. It was not free because people demanded money and got money. So it was paid for. It wasn't free. The bottom line is that the OAS, just like how they put pressure upon Venezuela by declaring that their election was not free and fair, this election was not fair either, and they should declare that by virtue of learning enough about really what took place before the election, for the preparation of the election, during the election, and after the election, because that's what the report's supposed to be reflect. But in most instances, unless the actions are so egregious, they just pass it under the table and let it go. Especially if it's a friendly country, such as Belize. We are friendly to everybody. And only if some other more powerful government wants to discipline us or cause us mischief or problems, then they want to talk about the things them that we are talking about and use it to slam we in our face with it. But our politicians shouldn't have to be misbehaving in such a way that we, the people of the country, have to be complaining about these issues. Because it only takes 6 hours for all 31 divisions to have been properly dealt with as regards to the reapportionment and the redivisioning. We show that multiple times on our platform. It not take 6 days, it not take 6 weeks, 6 months, or even 6 years. You know, take one whole 2 years, like what the Prime Minister said he need to do. 2 years after they get elected now, for him to be able to finally go around to deciding whether or not they can do the reapportionment and deal with the Section 90 violations. The Section 90 violations are not a political issue. It's not a party politics issue. Because regardless of how those numbers run out when they finally do it, whoever is doing those numbers could still make it work out to the point where they gerrymander it in their own favor. And it has to be done, will be done, but at the end of the day, that the people want to make the final vote. Because right now, didn't we hear the Prime Minister a few days ago say that they might be lucky to get all 31? So I think if middle name's supposed to turn out not to be 31, because they refuse to believe that the UDP, as messed up as they were, as divided as they were, as poor as they were, lacking a campaign, lacking a proper manifesto, lacking all the necessary things of a mass party, would at least retain the same 5 seats that they went into. Well, not the same, but I mean the same number of seats as they went into the election. So for all intents and purposes, the only gain that the PUP get out of the election, that they bastardized and used all manner of evil processes to achieve, by cutting off part of the time where they could only have up to November and gaining themselves a full term now instead. That's about the only thing that they really gain from that, other than the treasury again, to make them continue milk. Before then, few days before the election get called, the man and they borrow another 200 million, plus they not pay the 9 other contracts they had to pay. All the money was just to make them have enough money for the electioneering, so they could slush out money out of the thing. And had they lost, which was never probable, they would have walked away and did just like what the UDP did. When the UDP Prime Minister tell them he's sorry for whoever want to take over after him. Bishop would have probably say when he's sorry for who want to take over after him too, because they have run up over $2 billion worth of loans. They have taken out over
Belizean
$2
people do not
billion
know what really
of
catch them.
loans, which is much bigger than the original super bond. And they're going to go again and accept the idea that these guys should go back and hopefully not run up no 2 million, not even run up $1 million. It's not going to happen. They are who they are, they operate how they operate, and they will continue doing what they have done, and maybe worse, because they are now more empowered. Belizeans at home and abroad, this was the 267th 267 show on our platform of the Belizean Affairs show. And we thank you for your time spared. Greg, thank you very much for weighing in and supporting the program tonight and everything that you
Thank you.
brought to the table. Mr. Wade, thank you very much for your contribution as well, sir, and everything that you brought to the table. And we hope that the people can have some sense of gratitude, because while this might not be helping them in regards to the votes that have already been cast, we hope that this information, knowledge, affords them the privilege to realize when is it that they are bamboozled, how they are being bamboozled, and for them to answer the question as to why is it that they have to be bamboozled, or they have to allow themselves to be bamboozled. Because at the end of the day, they are the ones that vote. The legislators are supposed to respond to their vote by being a bit more amiable and a bit more honest and fair-minded to the populace, but they're not, and that's my grievance. I'll come back to my original point on another night, because we have been out of time for a while now, but we just kept on trying to do the best we can under the circumstance and give it a little extra brata. Thank you very much. God bless, and God bless Belize and Belizeans at home and abroad. That's
Thank
the end of our
you.
show for tonight.
Thank you.